see the light coming. I can see the light.
Hey,
I can see the light
it won't
coming.
last.
It won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come
Hey.
to pass. I can see the light coming. It's coming.
And darkness seems to be all around me, searching for what my eyes cannot see.
Where to go next?
Hey,
And who can I trust?
no one but you.
Oh,
I
I
see the
I
light.
can see the light.
Hey, yeah.
I can see the light coming.
Hey,
I can see the light.
I can see the light.
I can see the light
It
coming.
won't last.
It won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come
Hey,
to
hey,
pass. I can see the light
hey, hey.
coming.
Say,
It's coming. Oh, 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 oh,
This is what we want you to do for us, Jesus. So shine your light on us, yeah.
Shine your light, Jesus.
Oh,
Shine your light,
your light,
light on.
shine on us, Lord.
Shine your light, Jesus.
Shine your light, yeah.
Shine your light,
Hey.
your light on.
Shine it on us, Lord.
Shine your light, Jesus.
You are the light of the
Shine your light, your light on.
yeah, yeah.
Shine your light, Jesus.
I can see the light.
I can see the light.
Come on, yeah.
I can see the light
Hey,
coming.
hey.
I can see the light.
It's not dim,
I
Lord.
can see the light
It won't
coming.
last.
It won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come.
I can see the light.
I can see the light
I can see the light.
coming. It's coming.
Hey,
I can see the light.
I can see the light.
I can see the light coming.
Hey,
I can see the light.
I can see the
I
light.
can see the light
It won't
coming.
last.
It won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come to pass. I can see the light
Hey,
coming. It's
it won't
coming.
last.
It won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come to pass. I can see the light
Coming in, yeah.
coming. It's coming. This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
All of your troubles.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
All of your heartache.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
I can see the light.
This won't last.
I can see the light.
This won't last.
I can see the light.
This won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come.
I can see the light.
This won't last.
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 By faith I can see it.
This won't last.
By faith I can see it.
This won't last.
Your word will come.
Your word will come.
So you gotta hold on.
This won't last.
Hey, you gotta be strong.
won't last.
Hey, you gotta hold on.
This won't last.
Hey, you gotta be strong.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
It won't last.
This won't last.
And your word will come.
Your word will come.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
This won't last.
Woo, come on, come on.
This won't last.
Everybody clap your hands.
This won't last.
Hey, yeah.
This won't last.
Hey, yeah.
This won't last.
I can see it by faith.
This won't last.
Yeah, boy.
This won't last.
Your word.
Your word will come.
Everybody clap your hands. Hey, hey, I can see the light. Hey, listen, we've been making you a point.
Don't forget to like and share this broadcast with your friends and family on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube. Let all of your friends and family know to subscribe so that you know when the Center of Hope is going live.
You know, I'm thinking very hard about going back to school to do another doctorate degree. Thinking very hard about it.
I'm thinking about going back to get my GED. Why are you laughing? God bless you and welcome to Real Talk. And if it's Monday night and it's 9 p.m., it's Real Talk. And I'm your host tonight, Bishop Mitchell G. Taylor, and I'll be joined by my co-host, the Honorable Liston Page II. And tonight is going to be an exciting night tonight. And I don't know about you, Bishop Page, but I'm ready to go. It has been an eventful week thus far, and I'm speaking of the week starting on Sunday, not Monday. And one of the rare occasions that I had last night was I was watching the Oscars, and I don't normally watch the Oscars, but it just happens that last night I was watching the Oscars, and while I was watching the Oscars, I said, "Wow, look at all these Black performers," and you know, it was just a real Black presence on, you know, in the whole thing. Then I found out that a Black company had produced the Oscars for the first time in history.
I think that's what, Will Packer.
Yeah. And then you know, because several years ago they felt, you know, African Americans actors felt that there was a blackout, that they weren't really being included in the Academy in the proportions that they felt were equivalent to the white counterparts. And so this year was a breakout year, was a stellar year. And so I couldn't believe what happened. I mean, everybody's talking about it on, you know, on Twitter and on this and on that, and all the news networks are talking about what happened, you know, and I don't have to rehearse what happened. Everybody knows what happened, but I do want to say that it's a very unfortunate event. And I think that it's, you know, it speaks volumes of, you know, how far we yet have to go, you know, as a people in, you know, really respecting each other, you know, in a way. Now, I'll say this last thing, Bishop, and I'm gonna let you go. Sticks and stones, my dad taught me, may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. But I guess name calling and names and words do hurt, but not in the way that I think the parable was being recited. And so, you know, I give a lot of, you know, I'm praying for both of the people and everyone that's involved in this situation, because it's not a good look all the way around.
Well, you know, I don't know if we're going to discuss some of this along with our guest, but let me say this. I'm going to go on record of saying this. Okay. I don't agree with anything Mr. Smith did on last night. That's number one. But I do agree with this. We all have freedom of speech, but with that freedom comes sometimes an enormous price or consequence. Comedy is designed to lift the spirits of those who may need some joy in their lives. And most comedians use real life situations in order to make light of situations. Mm-hmm. I personally don't believe that it was the best moment for us as a people, because we're talking about this event, and we're not talking about the Oscars of Samuel Jackson. We're not talking about the production genius of Will Packer. We're not even talking about the Oscar that Will Smith received. We're talking about a black man assaulting another black man. And we got all of these different commentaries about he was defending this and he was defending that. Well, at the end of the day, there is a proper way to handle anything. And I don't know how I would have handled, to be quite frank with you, somebody slapping the fire out of me. I probably would have somebody slapping the fire out of Listen Babe. I'm telling you straight up, I would have been wrestling on the Oscar stage.
No, hey, listen, if they would have smacked you, it would have been no more Oscars.
I would have turned that thing all the way out. Now, with that being said, we as Black people in particular, there are really three types of anger that we see in our community. You got the passive aggressive, you got the open aggression, and you got assertive anger. Those are the three types of anger that you see in our community. And in spite of, listen, we can apologize, we can say we're sorry, but there are things that we do that have an indelible impression on the rest of our lives. And we don't have to be honest about that, but that is the reality. We can even look in the scriptures and see that. You know, we talk about how wonderful David is, but we attach his wonder and his songwriting skill to that incident he had with Bathsheba. If we don't want to attach it to that, we attach it to the anger he showed against Nabal in taking Nabal's wife, Abigail. So there's a lot of scriptures we can talk about that I can unpack and show you how anger can put you on the map, and it can be your reputation. And I just think that last night for us as a people who are just really getting in to those venues, it was not the best night for all of us. We all suffer.
Right. And you know, and in as much as you said that, you know, Mr. Smith was certainly out of order for going up and doing what he did, I also want to give a great amount of kudos as well as correction. I think that the words, the choice of comedic expression, although free as it may be, as you so eloquently said, comes with a great deal of responsibility. Having said that, when he realized, because I was watching, I couldn't believe that this is the first time I watched something live firsthand. And I saw him when he said, "Oh, it's just a G.I. Jane joke."
Well, if you listen to the statement, he prefaced it by saying, "I love you, Jada," and then he went into, "We'll see you at whatever," talking about that movie. If you look at it honestly, everyone in attendance, including her husband, was laughing about it. See, if we're gonna talk about it, you know what I'm saying? But they don't keep it real, Mitch.
All right, well, you know what? Before you go any further, I'm sorry, because we you know what's gonna happen. Let's bring our guest on.
Yes,
you know what's gonna happen. Yes. Because we can talk all night. I don't know why we do this to ourselves. Okay, please, Miss Sister Producer, bring our guest on, Dr. Divine Pryor. Dr. Pryor, I'm sorry, I should have read your bio first, but as you can see, we're in a heated conversation already, and it's no telling because we fight. So we might hit this conversation and be on two different ends of the spectrum, and I had to get you in. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our guest on tonight, Dr. Divine Pryor. He has a PhD, and it's not like my PhD. I have a public housing degree. He has a real PhD. Dr. Pryor is the Senior Policy Advisor for Community Capacity Development, where he works with an exceptional group of highly experienced and knowledgeable executive staff members who are responsible for administration of this rapidly growing organization. In his role, Dr. Pryor works closely with executive directors to ensure that the organization maintains compliance with its contracts, fiscally sound, that the management team is providing all the recent policy changes. Dr. Pryor engages in a range of intergovernmental activities to help coordinate citywide programs and serves that a part of the CCD service delivery system. Dr. Pryor is also the president and chief executive officer of People's Police Academy, PPA, in the City University of New York at Medgar Evers College, where he has developed an innovative approach to public safety that brings local leadership together with law enforcement. This highly acclaimed training and information this highly acclaimed training and information exchange experience requires that the participants commit to an activity to actively taking part in a 3-day problem-solving laboratory, out of which emerges a community-specific public safety agenda. The establishment of the PPA is the hallmark of 30 years of advocacy and activism in the criminal justice arena that has demonstrated that those who have the greatest stake in public safety should be at the center of developing the solutions.
That's a perfect place to stop right there.
Well, thank you
so much, Bishop Taylor. It's an honor, really, and a privilege to be in your company, Bishop Page. Likewise, I just consider this really a blessing to have this opportunity to be in this conversation with you, and I can jump right in where y'all left off.
Before you jump in, because I know you got to take over Spirit, but just hold on. Before you jump on in, Dr. Pryor, let me say this. Just before we were getting ready to introduce you, I wanted to give big ups to Chris Rock. I want to celebrate his discipline, his restraint. And even though he himself recognized that maybe, he crossed the line, he was a joke for him, maybe, whatnot. But after Will smacked every part of life out of him last night, he stood there and said, okay. He said, he just smacked me. And that was history. But you know what he did? He took a breath. He said, now the next award goes to the category on documentaries, and he just went on with, because let me tell you something. My brother that's sitting with us on this platform right now, if that was him, there would not have been no further Grammys. He would have went, grabbed the cymbal off the drums. Will would have been in trouble. And listen, I have to be honest myself. I don't know if I could have had the kind of restraint. And that was a whole smack. That wasn't no half smack. That wasn't no actor smack. That was he punk smacked him like for real. And so I just wanted to just say to Chris, from me to you, bro, I respect the fact that, you composed yourself and didn't allow this to be a bigger brawl than it was. Dr. Pryor?
Well, let me say I agree with everything you said, but let me put a little disclaimer in there. I got my first PhD from the School of Hard Knocks, from the prestigious UCLA. That's the university on the corner of Lenox Avenue. Having said that, I can tell you that because of where I came from, who I am and whose I am, when he came across the stage to approach me, I would have been in a different posture. my mind would not have led me to believe that he was coming to give me a hug. My mind wouldn't have led me to believe that he was coming to slap me a 5. I think instinctively I would have known that he was coming to do something that I would not have liked, and because of that, I would have been prepared. I don't think that he would have or could have smacked me, because I would not have allowed that to happen. That's just who I am as a person. I come from the street. Second of all, I would have preferred if he punched him rather than smacked him. See, when one man smacks another man, that has a lot of different connotations to it that I won't get into tonight. But what I will say, it's very demeaning for one man to smack another man. Just go ahead and punch him.
But Dr. Pryor, I gotta stop you. Please tell us. Give me a little bit of why the smack is different than the punch.
Well, it's really hard to describe. What it's just saying that you're not giving me, my due respect. When you smack me, you're saying that you think that I'm of the opposite gender.
That's right.
And in saying that, I don't want to use the B word, but that's a B smack. And that smack, is very degrading, very dehumanizing. It's very disrespectful. So not only, did you actually hit me on public television, but you smacked me to send out a message that I was less than a man. So you now, it's man, we could be here all night just on that subject alone. All I will say, as you so eloquently pointed out, that Bishop Page may have responded differently. I probably can concur with that. I concur with that. That it would have been a different outcome. And I'll tell you that it's not over yet, because there are a number of things that can happen from this. I don't know if Will Smith gave it a lot of thought. I try not to behave when my emotions are superseding my intelligence, because I generally do things without thinking it through logically. This could be a career breaker for Will Smith, because what he did could bring on a major lawsuit. Right now, I know that the executives, at the Academy Awards are looking into whether or not they need to respond. So this is not over yet. And, we have to always be mindful of what we do, because everything we do comes with consequences, as you know. And the consequences for this action that he took could be far more severe than he may have wanted.
Wow. I thought about that. I said, me being... I should have been a lawyer, but I wound up being a preacher. And but as soon as he got the smack, that's just 100 million just started popping up in my head. I said, I wish I was his attorney, because we'd be getting paid. I mean, that's a closed case.
It's a closed case. That's pretty cut and dry. Not only could Chris Rock sue Will Smith directly, he could sue the network.
And the
network as well as the
Academy. And the Academy.
The Academy, the network, Will Smith himself. I mean, this could be... Now, I heard that he told the LAPD that he was not pressing charges.
Yeah.
And so, but there's no time limit on it. He could always press charges at a later time. There's no statute of limitations, on that. At least not in the near future. So he could change his mind. I'm sure he has a lot of advisors that are talking to him and providing different alternatives and options to how he could respond to this. At the very least, he needs to have a face-to-face with Will Smith again. This situation needs to be resolved. Some resolution is going to have to be brought about. But we ain't going to spend our time, because we could be here all night just on that.
But
there's a lot of implications.
But you know what, Dr. Pryor? I think that man plans and God laughs. I've been talking about trying to get you on with us for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, made it happen. And we didn't know that this Monday that it would be on the heels of a violent act that took place on national television between who? 2 black men. And tonight, my brother, we're talking about violence that's happening in our communities between brothers. And the predominant number of activities and actions that are happening in our urban tracts are happening between our brothers on the blocks. Let me read this before we get started. Tonight, we're going to talk about urban violence. Crime and violence has grown exponentially during the pandemic. A lot of people are out of work because of the pandemic. A lot of forward-facing people, approximately 2.1 million people, all coming from inner city communities, were the first to lose their jobs. 28% of them would never return back to the same job. In order to ease the pain, the government released the largest stimulus that the country has ever seen. Some economists are calling this stimulus something that has overheated our economy. We've pumped so much money into the economy until nobody feels the need to work. But as the heat is cooling off and the money is drying up, we see a continued rise in crime and violence in Black and brown communities around the country. Couple that with the decline of active policing because of the fear of the activist outcry. All of this is a response to over-policing, profiling in Black and brown neighborhoods across the country that forced communities to come out and protest even in the midst of a pandemic. And so now, cities across the country are rocking and reeling because of inner city violence. Some proponents are suggesting that we should defund the police. What does that mean? Some people are suggesting in New York City that the $6.8 billion budget that the police force has is way too much money for urban policing and should be divested to accommodate mental health and services that are more appropriate to emergency calls. This conversation is being joined by an expert in this space, and that's Dr. Divine Pryor. So Dr. Pryor, I want to thank you tonight for joining us because, and I'm sorry for taking so long to couch this conversation, but that's what's been happening. We, for a minute, had a lull in criminal activity and violence because of the stimulus money being given to people that were supposed to be unemployment benefits, but they were given to people that were never employed. And so the economy was being overheated with money, just money, and resources until people, cars were being pumped into the system with white temporary tags and all kinds of things were happening and now here we are at the first quarter of 2022, and the conversation is cure violence, violence interrupters, justice involved, bail reform, all of these things. And Dr. Pryor, you have been at the forefront, along with Kay Bain and the crisis management system. Tell us a little bit about what you see happening, what's going on in our communities. But before we get that, that's too broad of a question. I want to make this question more myopic and direct. First of all, Dr. Pryor, tell us how you got the passion to be involved in crisis management from the beginning, and then tell us what crisis management really is.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to attempt to do something that generally takes a whole semester. You know, I used to teach, you know, in the City University of Medgar Evers, and we used to, you know, have a class on the history of crime and punishment in America. Mm-hmm. Let me first peel it back a little bit. Let me tell you that America itself is violent. The Star-Spangled Banner is violent. It talks about bombs bursting in midair. Bombs kill people. Bombs hurt people. That is violent. We talk about Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall and had a great fall, and you know the rest. Humpty Dumpty fell down and was smashed in pieces. That is violent. When we, you know, look at the imagery of how, you know, this country, you know, put smallpox on the blankets and killed millions of Native Americans, that is violent. So there's enough, you know, in the history of this country to talk about the foundation of it being built on violence. So violence is not a new concept in America. And, you know, I don't, you know, pretend to think that violence only takes place in our communities, because violence has been taking place in all communities throughout the history of this country. So I just want to give that, you know, as the backdrop, because sometimes we get misled, we get misinformed. Let me say that what we're experiencing today is the symptoms of a lot of pain. There are people that look like you and I, and look like Bishop Page, that have been oppressed for a long, long time. We're talking about people who are attempting to manage the trauma that they have been exposed to for centuries, from time immemorial. Particularly since we hit the shores of America, we have been under siege. We have been the targets of hatred. We have been the targets of oppression. We have been the targets of slavery. We've been the targets of mistreatment. We've been the targets of dehumanization. We've been the targets of degradation. We've been the targets of over-policing. We've been the targets of discrimination. I could go on and on. So this is cumulative trauma. This is not trauma that's just coming from recent incidents. This is trauma that's coming from generations of oppression. And the violence that you see is simply symptomatic of the pain that people have experienced for a very long time. You know, hurt people hurt. You know, hurt people hurt because they have really not been introduced to a way to relieve the pain that they have. So folks kind of strike out. Folks kind of act out. I often say that if people knew better, they would do better. Miseducation has a lot to do with why individuals end up in prison, right? Substandard housing, right? Concentrated poverty, underlying issues, the high rates of unemployment, right? Teen pregnancy, right? The infiltration of guns, automatic weapons. And, you know, I've never seen a factory that produces automatic weapons. And I've been all across the country in so many different states. I've never walked past a gun manufacturing factory, but yet hundreds of thousands of guns end up in urban cities across America every year. And no one is raising that question. No one raises the question about how they get here, how drugs get here. They come on large boats. They come in large amounts. People have to own those boats in order to bring them over. I know a lot of folks that are pretty, you know, well off, and I don't know anyone who owns a yacht large enough to bring hundreds of tons of marijuana and cocaine and heroin into the country. But that question is not being raised. Instead, we focus on those who are the victims, those who are the recipients of the automatic weapons and the drugs in our communities, and then we blame them for what they have been victimized against. And so we have to really unpack this situation in order for us to understand really what's happening in our communities. And I'll say this, and you can ask me all the specific questions you want. I want to give you a lot. I'm going to throw a lot out there so you'll have something to be able to chew on. Prisons were not built to beautify the landscape or experiment in architectural design. Prisons were built to house people. If you look at the so-called 13th Amendment, where slavery was allegedly abolished, you'll notice that it has a little footprint down on the bottom. slavery is abolished except if you're convicted of a crime. So what is actually being said is that if you're convicted of a crime, then you are indeed a slave once again. Don't we find it really interesting that the vast majority of people that are in prisons across America and across this world are the descendants of slaves, are the great-great-grandsons and great-great-granddaughters of slaves? We don't find it interesting that those individuals who go through the criminal justice system go through a process where they are first criminalized for being poor, criminalized for being black, criminalized for being uneducated, criminalized for not having affordable housing, and then sent through a system where they are convicted of a crime. And in the process, they transfer their custody into the prison industrial complex or into the prisons where they become wards of the state. A ward of the state is really a prisoner of the state. And so they found an ingenious way to re-enslave individuals through the criminal punishment system, right, but they call it incarceration. So this is really a wordplay. This is a very devious and diabolical system that has been designed for the sole purpose of ensuring that slavery will continue to exist. And I'll tell you this, and then I promise I'll stop because I know you have a lot of questions. The recidivism rate. Recidivism is the rate by which people come out of prison and go back to prison. They come out of prison, they go back to prison. And what we find that the recidivism rate for the last 50 years has been anywhere between 60 and 71%. That means if you use the 60, 6 out of 10 people that come out of prison go back to prison within 3 years, and a third of them go back within the first year. If you use the 70%, it's 7 out of 10. Now, if you were a car manufacturer and you were manufacturing cars, and 7 out of 10 cars that came off the assembly line were defective, you would stop the line, you would fire the foreman, you would do a total examination, and you would say, this is absolutely unacceptable. However, in the situation of black men and women now even increasingly going in and out of the prison system, there's been no outcry. There's been no one raising the flag, the campaign that this is an unacceptable practice. And so there's a lot that we have to discuss here. We have to call it what it is. We can talk in polite terms. We can be politically correct. But the reality is that the prison system today is nothing more than what the plantation was yesterday. They're just more debonair and more sophisticated in how this system is used to actually house people in these warehouses that they call prisons. And that's my short response.
Okay. Well, listen, that was great. And you're right. You gave me 1,000 questions to ask you. And I want to give Bishop Page a chance to ask you a couple of questions. But I want to ask you this. There's a lot of conversation now around the community about the Cure Violence movement, right? And I want to talk specifically about what's happening here in New York City. I know that when the former mayor was here, he identified 16 map developments and decided to put some resources in those developments in the form of Cure Violence programming. Can you explain to us what the Cure Violence Initiative is? Very simply, can you tell us in the concise so that the viewers can know? Because people probably that live in public housing neighborhoods across the city, whether it be in Red Hook or Queensbridge or the other developments that Cure Violence is in, and they're saying, who are these guys? Who are these people? What is this? So tell us, what is Cure Violence?
Well, in a nutshell, Cure Violence is a public health approach to violence as opposed to a criminal justice approach to violence. What the public health approach says is violence is like a disease, that violence is a disease that spreads through exposure, that the exposure to the disease, meaning something that you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, that you begin to internalize that. And then the behaviors that come out of that are simply reflections of what you have been exposed to. It says, like any other disease, that it can be tracked. Mm-hmm. It says, like any other disease, it kind of concentrates. So that disease has to be identified, it has to be isolated, and then it has to be treated. And so what the cure violence system does is use those individuals who were once infected with the disease, but were treated and recovered from the disease to actually go back into the communities and help other individuals be cured from the disease. And so it uses what is known as credible messengers, meaning people who come from the lifestyle. We're talking about formerly incarcerated people. We're talking about former street pharmacists or drug dealers. We're talking about people who belong to street organizations, aka gangs. We're talking about people who understand the lifestyle, who speak the language, who understand the culture, the rules of engagement, but have been able to rise above that situation and now have the wherewithal to use their what they call street cred, their credibility, the respect that they're able to command and demand from individuals because of their knowledge of their street prowess. And those tools they actually use to go back into the community and intervene. So there's a lot of mediation that goes on. I mean, I'm a credible messenger myself. I became a man in the prison system. And after going through the prison system, I was formally educated in the prison system. I earned 2 master's degrees, a master's degree in theological research at Sing Sing Correctional Facility and another master's in sociology at Eastern Correctional Facility. When I came home, I was already accepted in 4 doctoral programs before I hit the ground in the year 1990. And so I had already understood that I wanted to come back to the community and give back. Before there was a formal name placed on this approach, the only thing myself and those of us who spent a lot of time in the law library and a lot of time in Black history classes said, we have to go back and we got to work with these young people. We have to discourage them from engaging in a life of crime. We have to let them know that they're bright, they're intelligent, they're brilliant, that they have the potential to do anything they want, and that we have to steer them away from using this type of lifestyle as an alternative to escape from the pain and the anguish that they're suffering. So the Credible Messenger movement, is a network of individuals who bring all of their street experience into the laboratory, and then we kind of repackage that and reprogram it, and we teach communication skills and mediation skills and crisis resolution skills and other kind of skills that are necessary for them to go back into those communities and begin to start working with what they call high-risk individuals.
Wow. I wanted to ask this question. How do you determine, so you go in, so the Cure Violence movement is really about empowering credible messengers, those that were involved with gangs, those that understand the lifestyle, those that have street credibility, but have risen to a level of accountability themselves and have made a change. Absolutely. They have been cured from the disease, and now they're going back into the community to help heal others that are still infected with that disease.
Absolutely.
Right. Got it. Okay. So the question I want to ask then is, how do you determine a credible messenger? How do you determine a person, in a community that is ready to do what you're saying in terms of, well, I guess, yeah. Well, how do you determine a credible messenger? That's the first question.
Well, you determine it because you have to have a proven track record. Just because you were a former drug dealer, just because you did time in prison, just because you were a member of a gang does not make you a credible messenger. What makes you a credible messenger is a proven track record. What makes you a credible messenger is the fact that you have demonstrated through your behavior, through the things that you have done post incarceration, post drug dealer, post gang member, that you are a change agent. That means that the way you present yourself is really a demonstration that the person I was is not the person that I am, and that I am now willing and able to go back into hostile terrain. Let's not sugarcoat this. We're talking about individuals who are going back into areas where individuals are carrying arms, where individuals have a different mindset, where they don't have a high regard for human life. You're talking about people who have a distorted perception of life. You're talking about people who are wallowing in hopelessness and despair. You're talking about people who feel that they're doing what they have to do. And so therefore they have no regard to take what is not theirs, to take someone's life, to hurt another individual. And so you have to really go in and you really have to present them a practical alternative to their lifestyle. But see, this is what we do. See, we understand that for an individual to be 22 years old and to be running a drug cartel and having 50 and 60 people working for them, that requires a great deal of intelligence. You have to have accounting skills. You have to have manufacturing skills. You have to have packaging skills. You have to have distribution skills. You have to know about administration. You have to know about supervision. So therefore, you have a great deal of skills that can be transferred. So one of the tools that we use is to show you how to transfer your skills into legitimate enterprise. So we show individuals how they can be legitimate entrepreneurs, how they understand how to do what they call niche marketing, meaning packaging something in a way that appeals to a very specific population. That's what individuals do. That's the reason why when they sell drugs, they come up with names for their drugs. They got special packaging that they use for their drugs. They have a particular routes that they use in order to distribute those drugs. And they're doing all this while they're evading law enforcement. There's no question that we're not dealing with some highly intelligent individuals. They just don't know that. It's our job to now educate them and to inform them that they are children of God, first of all. With me, everything starts with God. And we have to let them know how precious they are. We have to let them know that we have an understanding of why they're engaging in those behaviors, but we can't condone that behavior. We can't support that behavior. What we can do is offer them a way out. Because a lot of individuals in these situations don't think they have a way out. They don't think they have another choice. They don't think they have another option. They don't think they have another alternative. Credible messengers, because we speak the language, can show them a way out. And I'll tell you, when you give a person a choice of life over death, the vast majority of the time, they're going to choose life. If you give them a choice of success over failure, vast majority of the time, they're going to choose success. Now, there is a small portion of individuals who have been so damaged that we have not yet figured out how to deal with that population. The vast majority of crime, by the way, in communities and violence is committed by a small group of individuals. The majority of the folks in communities are hardworking people that go to work every day, that want their children to go to school. They want to live a prosperous life and do everything they can to obtain that. It's that small cadre of individuals that are responsible for committing the acts of crime and violence that we focus on as credible messengers. And over the years, we've flipped a lot of individuals. We have individuals that we work with that we're so happy that they're on our side now and not on the other side. And these individuals are extremely effective when they go back into the community. They've literally disarmed individuals. They've literally taken individuals in the midst of a violent act and disarmed them. And not only, I'm not talking about physically taking the gun, but also disarmed them mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So, there's a lot of training that goes into the credible messengers. There are institutes where individuals have to go through intensive training to actually learn how to effectively communicate with individuals in heated, hostile, highly emotionally charged situations. These individuals should be revered and respected because credible messengers are extraordinary professionals who actually do a job with no weapons, no bulletproof vests. They don't have the ability to detain anyone. They can't take anyone's liberty away. All they have is their body, their mind, their soul, and their commitment to change.
Wow. Mr. Page?
I would just want to, this may be off the beaten path, but you said something about recidivism earlier. Can you give me, what is the pathology behind recidivism? because there has to be a pathology there. What is that?
I'm so happy. Thank you for asking that question. You know, the prison industrial complex, first of all, is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right? And the industry only prospers when those beds are filled. Empty beds don't bring profits to the prison industrial complex, so that there is no incentive for the prison system to treat individuals while they're in custody so that they don't come back. Actually, the opposite is actually true. That in fact, they actually encourage and allow certain behaviors to permeate throughout the prisons, knowing that if an individual persists in these behaviors, that they are more than likely to return back to the prison system. And so in order to keep this revolving door revolving, it's necessary for certain things to be in place. So when you commit a crime, for instance, in America, this is the only country in the world that no matter what crime that you commit, when you're convicted of that crime, you receive a life sentence. What do you mean, Dr. Pryor, life sentence? Because in the United States, you don't actually start doing your time until after you do your time.
That's
See,
right.
after you've served your time in custody, when you return back into the streets, you have what they call collateral consequences, meaning you have a whole host of laws that deny you access to employment, deny you access to housing, deny you access to life insurance, deny you access to the things that you need in order for you to successfully integrate back into the community and become a law-abiding, upstanding citizen in your community. And because all of these barriers and restrictions are maintained, it becomes extremely difficult for an individual coming out with a criminal conviction, and you're black and you're not rich. You already got 3 strikes against you. And every time you go for a job and you check that box that I'm convicted of a crime, someone very politely says, well, we'll get back to you. Your application goes in the nearest waste paper basket. If in fact you live in federally subsidized housing, otherwise known as the projects, and you have a criminal conviction, you are restricted from living in that housing. And in fact, if you're arrested while you're on NYCHA property, and you're on the lease of that particular dwelling, the person who is the master leaseholder is forced to take you off their lease. Otherwise, they have to risk being evicted from the properties. Individuals who are convicted of a crime have a difficult time getting life insurance. Individuals convicted of a crime cannot serve on a jury. Individuals who are correct. So there are a whole host of things that an individual not to mention the fact, if you went to prison and you were paying child support while you're serving your time, your child support payments continue to accumulate. It's not like they say, well, it's not possible for this person to pay child support because they're incarcerated. And at best, they can make no more than $1 a day if they work in industry. So why don't we suspend that? That doesn't happen. Instead, your child support payments accumulate. And what happens when you return home and now you owe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in child support payments, right. One of your conditions of release is that you must pay back that child support payment. But if you can't get a job, how would you possibly do that? So if you can't do what's impossible for you to do, then you violate your parole and then you're sent back to prison. So there are so many tricks and so many levers that by design will actually ensure that you become a part of this recycling system.
That's powerful. I was wondering, when you talked about recidivism, the pathology behind it, but even more importantly than that, what then is attached to the pathology of rehabilitation? Because you've got 2 types of pathologies going on. You got the pathology of keeping people in a cycle based on an infraction, but then you have another cycle that is trying to get them out of that particular culture and context and rehabilitate them. But is there really a pathology for rehabilitation when in actuality the laws are written in such a way that you remain enslaved to a systemic system of slavery? How does that work?
We have a lot of work to do, Bishop. We have to attack the legislation. We have to change much of the policy that's on the books. Is draconian. It's mean-spirited. It's outright racist, to be honest with you. So we have work to do on that level. We need to train people to go into the halls of government and begin to start challenging these legislators. In fact, we need to challenge those who come to our sanctuaries when it's election time and want to stand on our pulpit and ask, all of our members for their vote, but yet when they get in office, they don't serve the interests of the people. And many of our folks have sons and grandsons and nieces and nephews who are in the prison system, yet we have representatives who continue to uphold, maintain, and perpetuate laws that ensure their continuous incarceration. That has to stop. So the first thing we do is educate folks about the things we're talking about tonight, so that when they go to speak to their legislators, they can put this stuff on the table and let them know this is unacceptable. We will no longer continue to allow you to be in office if you're not going to be a champion, an ambassador for change and transformation. If you're not doing the things that are going to heal us and uplift us and are going to take us out of this situation we're in, then we're no longer going to cast our vote for you. We have to start withdrawing our vote. So we got to work on the legislative level. That's the federal, the state, and the city level. Then we got to go into the community and we got to start empowering our communities, and we got to let our communities know we don't have to rely exclusively on the criminal justice system to solve our problems. There was a time when we could solve our own problems. Shoot, if I did something up the street, Miss Jones could grab me by the ear, pop me in the back of the head, take me down to my house, tell my mama, she would then grab the same ear, pull me in, pop me in the head again. And then when my daddy came home, I got it again, because we know that it takes an entire community to raise a child. We need our community back. We got to put the neighbor back in the hood. We have to understand that we are our brother's keeper, and we have to remind people who we are and where we come from, that we are great people, and we come from a history of family where we looked out for each other, where we protected each other's interests, we protected each other's children, we protected each other's property, and most of all, we protected our dignity. And that's because we were God-fearing people. So we have to put the God back into the conversation, because in God we trust. They've taken that out now. They can't even pray in school anymore. They're now talking about they want to take even the teaching of our history out of the school books. So on the community level, we have to do a lot of cultural restoration work, a lot of healing work, a lot of work around how do we get back to the people that we are. And then on the individual level, that's heavy. We're going to have to come up with ways to try to treat the various different mental health issues that our people are facing. But I'll tell you this, any folks have been oppressed for 400 years, 300 years of slavery, 120 years of Jim Crow, and then the emergence of institutionalized racism, which was a system that was designed to preserve all of the principles of slavery, and yet they still have not sent the social workers. Don't you notice that after all the trauma, people been hanged, people been burned, people been maimed, people been mistreated, families been broken up, and the social workers were never sent in. And so someone said one day that slavery was over, you can now go. But at that point, you are 4, 5, 6 generations separated from the folks who were brought here on the shores. You've been traumatized from the day one. And then you wonder why Black folks act a little peculiar, why we a little strange. We've never been treated. There's been no treatment. There's been no therapy. There's been no counseling. There's been no social work. None of the treatments that a person who's been traumatized should receive have we received. And then people dare to ask, what is the problem?
Dr. Brown, let me just ask you this real quick. With 300 years of slavery, 120 years of Jim Crow, having a system or a construct that have been put in place to keep us enslaved through smokescreen and mirrors, ambiguity, all of those things with this jaded pathology. How does the church deal with the person who has not had any social programming, social rehabilitation, any real mental health therapy. How does the church then minister to a person like that? Because listening to you, you know, hell, I knew I was crazy, but now I know the reason why. So so I know for a fact I would have slapped Will Smith right back based on that there.
Yeah.
I haven't had therapy. I'm fighting what I would consider social cognitive dissidence. I'm dealing with the baggage of a systemic system that is designed to keep me in recidivism. And recidivism for me is more than it's going back to prison. It's going back to things that caused me to be comfortable, even if those things were negative. That's how I look at recidivism. If I got all of this baggage to deal with, how does the church confront these type of issues?
Well, you know, Jesus said that if there were no sick amongst us, there'd be no need for a physician, right? And so we need to get people, first of all, back in church. And church needs to be a place of refuge. We need to go back to the basics and let folks know that we accept you as you are. We know that you're broken. We know that you're sick. We know that you're maimed. We know you got mental health issues. This is the one place that you can come and not be judged and ridiculed. This is the one place that you can come and you can receive love. Some folks just need a hug, believe it or not. Start with that. You know, young people don't care what you know until they first know that you care. So we have to first go back to the basics and let folks know that we love you. I want folks to know I was glad when they said, let us go into the house of the Lord. If I can't make it anywhere else, let me make it to church. If I can just get there. Life is tough out here. Things are going awry. But I know if I can just make my way to the sanctuary, there'll be someone there who will look me in the eye and say, brother, I love you. Sister, I love you. I may not have a whole lot of materialism to give you, but let me start with giving you a hug. Let me start with accepting you. Let me teach you how to not continue to be drowning in rejection and drowning in hopelessness. Here's a place where you don't have to be judged, where we'll accept you for who you are. Once we do that, and that's a basic message. That's Christianity 101. Once we start getting back into the church, then we're going to identify those credible messengers in the church, because they're in your congregation, Bishop. They're in my congregation. And so we're going to start a program to let folks know it's okay in here. It's safe for you to self-disclose in here that you are recovering drug addict or recovering, incarcerated person, whatever, because we need you, because you're going to be the one that's going to lead the work in the church. For us to begin to start this process of healing. So there's a lot that we can do. We have the institutional backing, we have the word of God, we have faith. A lot of folks need faith. A lot of folks have lost hope. They've lost faith. They don't know what they believe. They're scrambled up. And not to mention the fact that we have to just clearly, as we've been talking tonight, distinguish right from wrong, right? God don't bless no mess. So we're going to have to be very straight up with folks and let them know there's certain things that are just not acceptable, that we're not going to accept that, and those things, we know what they are. The individuals, violence is not going to be accepted, and, fornication is not accepted. So we have the tools. We have the tools. We ain't got to go to no school and get no PhD. We got the Holy Bible. We got the Word of God, and we stand on that Word. And the Word don't need our defense. We ain't got to defend the Word because it's its own defense. That's the reason why I have never gotten into a religious argument. I don't need to do that. God doesn't need me, little old me, to defend Him. And so I think that we have to go back to the basics, and we have to put the sacred back into the sanctuary, and we have to continue to promote the sanctuary as a place of refuge. If you want to escape from hopelessness and from the drudgery of life, if you want a place where you can come and be accepted, where you can heal and recover, then you need to find your way to the sanctuary. I was glad when they said, let us come into the house of the Lord.
Wow. Well, listen, I got a whole list of questions from that that I cannot execute on tonight, man. But I want to let you know, Dr. Pryor, I know Bishop Page is going to concur with me on tonight. You blessed us on tonight. You blessed us on tonight because you were very succinct. You were very deliberate. You know, you told us, and I want to kind of recap this for the real talkers on tonight. Number one, hold your legislators responsible, accountable. All right. Don't just put them in without an agenda.
That's right.
Pookie's in jail. You know, this one, we got all kind of issues. And so we have to hold them accountable. Number two, go to the communities. You have to go into the communities. We got to put the neighbor back in the hood.
That's right.
I love that. We have to go back in. You talked about, you know, the lady grabbing your ear and then your mother grabbing your ear. You know, I remember, listen, I couldn't walk through the projects and do something without somebody calling out, I'm telling your father, without
That's
somebody
right.
calling out the window. You couldn't do nothing. If you was going to do something, you had to go to the park.
That's right.
Outside the community, because your neighbor was raising you just like your mother and father. You know. Then the third thing you said was cultural restoration, but you talked about what we do as individuals. And Bishop Page came back with an eloquent question. So how do we deal with all these people? You talked about, I can't even say it as eloquently as you guys said it, but 300 years of slavery, 120 years of Jim Crow. I'd say another 30 years of James Crow Esquire. That's his cousin, you know, and we haven't had any therapy. We haven't had any treatment. How do we as the church, and you said it so beautifully, and I've been saying it all along, somebody just needs a hug. You see, and I saw it so clearly when you said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go. This is a no judgment zone. This is a place where you're recovering, no problem. We need you to recover because we need you to go back and help somebody else recover.
That's right. That's
but
right.
the church has become antithetical to that concept. That's not our pathology. Our pathology is totally different. And we don't have time. I see the light flashing. Okay, the producers are saying that our time is up. But listen, we need to come back and rethread the rest of this needle on next week. And if you're up to it, Dr. Pryor and Bishop Page, if you're up to it, I'd like to come back and I'd like to start right here where we left off, where you said, Bishop, you said, what can we do? What can the church do with all these damaged goods? Okay, how do we move forward with these people from there? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, you started talking about the credible messengers, the gangs, folks that understand the lifestyle, those that are have street cred, and empowering them to use all of those assets to go back into the community and bring some healing. I want to go back. I want to talk more about that. I want to talk about that in specific. I want to talk about how, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, without a bulletproof vest, without a gun, without, all you have is the gift that God gave you. And that's what a lot of our credible messengers have, the gift to talk.
And I think along with that, Mr. Taylor, I want to really kind of drill into this whole idea of retaliation. Because I think when we as believers are creating another culture of people that are used to a context of violence, there has to be a way, as you eloquently said it, Mitch, to rethread that needle of retaliation. because we can't use them scriptures, turn the other cheek. That is not what that means.
Right.
It means that you do not retaliate the way you used to retaliate. And when you have a pathology or a context or a culture that is built on survival that way, we need to find a way to reintroduce them to another way, another culture, another pathology. We gotta create another construct for retaliation, and we have to call it retaliation, but it has to be a passive retaliation, or how can I say it, an aggressive retaliation, and unpack it in a way where aggressive does not mean violent. It just means confronting it with the ability that both sides can articulate, and we both listen, and then we resolve the conflict.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect off ramp, and a perfect on ramp, because what Will Smith did, you know, he is around our age. We're all around the same age. All right. We all got 30 plus years career time in, no matter where you've been and how you've developed it. Right. We're trying as Black professionals to set a new precedence and paradigm. What Will did last night, and I'm going to go back to this because this has been, unfortunately, the bedrock of, or the foundation of the way I think about pain and hurt. So sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt you. Well, we know that name calling does hurt you. All right. It penetrates a part of your inner being that sometimes can be more damaging than a blow. But what Will did, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bishop.
No, what I totally agree with you, Bishop, but I just want to just add to that. And just in my humble opinion, you have a comedian. All of us have not always been saved. We haven't always been in the church. You're looking at three men that have been in the street and have extensive history in the street. And not just as young adults, but going into our adult life. And we all have been to a comedy club. If you've never been to a comedy club, you can't identify with the culture of a Black comedian or a comedian that comes up in that particular genre. Nobody's off limits. When you go into the comedy club, nobody's off limits, Mitch. And what they do is they will prey on your actual physical looks, or they will talk about an event that's actually going on in your life, and they don't do it. They don't poke fun to hurt or to demean, but they want to lighten that circumstance and situation and bring some laughter and joy out of it. The three of us are preachers and pastors. We do it every time we get in the pulpit. We do it. I can't wait for Sunday, because I'm gonna tell them on Sunday, Miss, listen, if you come up here and slap me, it ain't gonna end up right for you. And I'm gonna be joking, but we take real life events and we attach humor to that. Now, that's all I'm saying. Now, did he cross a line? Well, when you listen to the joke, it wasn't something demeaning. It wasn't something so horrific. Should it have been said? Maybe not. But the punishment, in my opinion, did not fit the crime.
Right.
What it does, it speaks to, in my mind, Mitch and Dr. Pry, it speaks to the pathology of how they define us. They define us as angry African-American people that have no control over their emotions. We wear our sensitivity on the sleeve. It feeds into that. And a great night, a great evening where Black artistry is on display is diminished by some hoodish behavior. That's what I'm doing.
There's no other way to put it.
Maybe
no other way to put it.
Maybe Will didn't spend enough time in Bel Air.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think what I was trying to say was, too, to finish that statement was, I just believe that, and I wanted to go on that sticks and stones analogy, that I think that when you look at the MTV Awards, when you look at the Hip Hop Awards, when you look at some of the awards that are a little bit more racy than the Academy and whatnot, and then you look at Will Smith, who is our icon, our example, and I guess other young cats, you know, that may be a little bit more racy in their music, in their genre, and what they do. Oh, well, you know, if they're in a award show like this, a hip hop show or something like that, and somebody gets up and says, "Man, I want to thank everybody for this award, and y'all Negroes that didn't get with me, you know where you can go, and you know who I'm talking about." And then the dude in the audience said, "Oh, I know who you're talking about." He gets up out of his chair and gonna come up to, I mean, because Will did it.
Right.
We're setting a precedence.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do, and that's really not cool. We
First
just
natural, Mitch. First natural, then spiritual. Dr. Pryor, trust me, trust Bishop A. And I don't claim to be a prophet, but as Mitchell Taylor would say, I speak from the heart of God. I promise you, somebody is gonna try that foolishness in church.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get a mud hole stomped in them in church. See, we talk all this Holy Spirit, all this speaking in tongues, but we got armor bearers, we got adjectives, we got the saints that love their leaders, and somebody is gonna try it. And we do have a precedence for it. Billy Joe Doherty in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was having an altar call. Somebody came through the crowd and slapped him. I mean, they slapped the fire out of him too. But you have isolated incidents where those things happen. Mitch, I agree with you. This gives license and credibility, and it reinforces that type of behavior. And we don't believe in that. We believe in being polished and poshed, and being able to have a dialogue and a discussion to solve our conflicts, not resort to violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
I guess there's no truer words have been said. You know, one thing that we have, those of us who are credible messengers, is that we want people to know our history. Every now and then I have to remind folks, y'all know that I wasn't always Dr. Pryor, right? Y'all know I wasn't Reverend. Y'all know that I spent a whole decade in prison, right? I never been to a minimum security or medium. They kept me in maximum A security prisons. That should tell you something. I'm probably not somebody you want to play around with, you know. I mean, I'm a Christian under construction, you know. I'm striving for the high call, you know, and let's not get it twisted, you know. So, you know, had that been me, I don't think Will Smith would have done that. You know, had he known the history, you know, he probably thought he can get away with that with Chris Rock. Chris Rock probably is not a credible messenger. You know, he probably didn't come from where we come from, you know, and I would have hoped that had Will Smith smacked me, I wouldn't have smacked him back. But chances are, if Will Smith had smacked me, he would have caught him in a whipping. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Right there on the Academy Awards, you know. And then I would have prayed about it and asked for God's forgiveness, you know. I really enjoyed y'all. I really did. This has been wonderful.
Listen, it really has. And listen, I want to ask all the Real Talkers to please give a round of applause to our special guest on tonight, Dr. Divine Pryor. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pryor. Thank you, Dr. Pryor. And listen, and I think my co-host would agree. If you'll join us next week, we'd like to pick up right where we left off.
Please.
Sure, let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Awesome. Well, Real Talkers, you heard it here, right here. Listen, just before we go, last words, last comments you want to give the Real Talkers before next Monday night? Dr. Pryor, you go first, then Bishop, you'll give us the last word.
Well, yeah, I just want to say, that knowledge is power, and in the Bible it says, know thyself. You have to know who you are, right? It starts with that. And once I know who I am, see, I may not be able to change you, but I can change me. And by changing me, I can change the outcome of what happens between you and me. And so there is something I can do. I can change a lot in my life by changing me, but I first have to get in touch with who I am, And so I'm just encouraging everyone to get to know yourself, and have a relationship with God, because if God is with you, it doesn't make a difference who's against you, right? And so I just want to let all of the listeners out there to know, put God first. Put God in your life, because the only thing that God cannot do is fail.
Wow. Beautiful.
Mitch, I would conclude from Proverbs 25 and 28. Simple text. Whoever has no control over their own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. And I think we have seen a tremendous example of being rich, being full of notoriety, having the world as your oyster. But if you don't have any control over your spirit, you're like a city broken down without walls, meaning anything can come in and anything goes out.
Wow. Wow.
That's God powerful. Bless you, man of God.
Well, listen. Yes, sir. That's Dr. Page there. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We will see you on next week. Real Talkers, you heard it tonight. We had a tremendous time. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight and hanging out with myself, Dr. Page, and Dr. Pryor on tonight. Now, listen, anytime we have guests on Real Talk, we want to encourage the Real Talkers to show your hospitality, show your appreciation, and show your gratitude for our guest on tonight. So I'm going to ask everyone to get your seed ready. Everyone, get your seed ready on tonight. I need 10 intercessors to stand with me on tonight. 10 of you to stand with me on tonight. I'm going to be sowing a seed of 50 on tonight. I just need 9 other people to sow that seed of 50. And then watch this. I need everyone else on tonight, another 40 people on tonight, to sow a seed of 22. That's it. That's the base seed, 22. So if I can get you on tonight, all of you that are watching, to sow the seed of 22 on tonight and put in the comment section 22 and done. And then those of you that are going to stand with Bishop and you're going to sow the 50. Yes, the Counselor Page, Alicia. Yes, you're going to sow the 50. I need those other 9 people to stand with me on tonight. Thank you so much, Alicia, for your seed of 22. I need you to do exactly what she did and put it in the comment section. Done, 22. And those of you that are going to be standing with me on tonight, just put in the comment section 50 and done on tonight. I believe God for each and every one of you that do it. I just did mine in the name of the Lord, and I just need 9 other people. Thank you, Jatan, for standing with us on tonight with 22 on tonight. I need everyone to sow a seed on tonight to the ways to give are on the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Ali. Thank you for the Kohai Nation sowing a $50 seed on tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much for your seed on tonight. Linda, thank you so much for your seed on tonight. I need 8 others that are going to stand as intercessors with me on tonight and sow that seed of 50 on tonight. Lisa, bless you. Thank you. Thank you for your seed on tonight. I need those 8 other persons that will stand with me on tonight. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Sister Wendy. Sister Wendy, I owe you a phone call. Please don't charge my heart, charge my head. It has been crazy the last 3 or 4 days, but I'm going to get back to you, I promise you. Bishop Page, thank you for standing with me with the seed of 50 on tonight. Those of you that are watching, Please don't leave. Thank you, Kathleen, for your seed on tonight. Those of you that are watching, don't leave the platform without sowing your seed and putting done in the comment section so that we can acknowledge your seed. You're not giving to be seen, but as a believer, sometimes you have to be seen giving. All right, listen. The lights are turning red, green, and black. I don't know what that means, but I guess we got to get off the air. Thank you so much, Real Talkers. And even if you're watching this after I've gone off and this is the rerun, in the rerun, sow the seed on tonight and watch God bless you for being a blessing to somebody else. Thank you. If it's Monday night and it's 9 p.m., don't forget, it's Real Talk. I'll see you next week for part 2. And part 2 is going to be called Retaliation. Tell somebody about next week's show. God bless you.